So, here's my question. Why didn't they just put something over the hole? I mean, you've got a hole to another dimension from which are pouring a legion of unstoppable monsters. And their first answer to that is giant human-shaped robots. It seems to me like they would want to take advantage of the bottleneck that these aliens have created. Like, say, put something on top of the hole. They devote all this time and energy to making a wall that the monsters will not be able to penetrate, though they do. Why don't they just turn the wall on its side, use those helicopters, lift it up, and drop it into the ocean over the hole? Or, failing that, why not set up, say, a wall with spikes, or spinning fan blades with laser tips, or a laser grid like something out of those stupid Resident Evil movies that would slice the monsters up into pieces as soon as they come through? I mean, think about this. If you were in charge of the military, or every resource, just if you were in charge, and you had to deal with the eruption of a monster hole in the Pacific Ocean, what would you do? Make a game out of it. How many ideas would you go through before you arrived at the giant robots option? Seriously. I mean, if you wanted to be practical rather than cool about this, I mean, me, like I said, I just put things on top of it. Like, lots of things on top of it. Just take that big wall that they were building, fold it end over end, and put a mile-high sheet of indestructible stone and masonry right on top of it. Or at least they should have tried that. Or how about guns, like cannons, really good guns, all around the perimeter of every island or landmass all around the Pacific Rim, so that they could shoot the monsters before they made their way to various parts of the world. Or, since explosions are so effective against these monsters, why not make, like, robots programmed to fly over to where the monsters are, grab onto them, and explode? You know, landmines, water mines. Or maybe some kind of tripwire that would activate a trap whenever anything came up through it. Say, maybe just a wall of spikes that would come down or smush the monsters. Maybe just spikes facing down over the rim so that they'd be impaled. I mean, it's the future, right? They could line them with lasers, make them laser spikes. I would make a monster that would come through, just chop them up into little pieces. I mean, they could do that. I mean, if they've got enough technology to make psychic robots, they can do this, I think. or gouts of flame, intense flame, or just bombs set around to explode whenever a monster shows up. I mean, I don't think there'd be that much problem with nuclear explosions in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, because there doesn't seem to be any real aftermath to it in this movie, because that's what they do to the worst monsters that come up. They just grab onto them and explode. It's a kamikaze move, but I mean, they don't need to actually pilot the robots for that, do they? Just set things up around the rim. I mean, the aliens have created a bottleneck with their invasion force, and this would offer us, realistically, a huge tactical advantage. There are so many things we could do besides making human-shaped robots which deploy and make their way over to where the monsters are. It just seems like they could have done something to account for that, for the lack of explanation for this. So it's a cool movie. It really is. It's cool. It's fun. I think it could have been a bit smarter. Ron Perlman's character was pretty pointless. He was just there to be Ron Perlman because Guillermo del Toro, he loves Ron Perlman. I don't blame him. You know, everybody loves Ron Perlman. He's just there to be the cool Ron Perlman guy. That was pretty superfluous. In fact, the scientist characters were superfluous. You know, they're the geeky, anime, stereotypical uber geek scientists who are always squabbling and finding things out. You could have actually taken all their scenes out, and they could have minimized their presence in the film entirely. And it's a shame that they didn't take out some of the more superfluous parts of this film and put in more fluous parts. What's the opposite of superfluous? Well, just more necessary parts to build the characters. I would have liked to see more build-up to the present of the movie. Earth and humanity reacting to these monsters, more of their impact on popular culture. As it is, we don't see much of that. I'd like to see the brothers growing up and in this wartime environment where monsters are a reality and how they became Jaeger pilots. But that's the common complaint for this film, that the humans aren't quite human enough. There's a nice little subplot with the female Jaeger pilot and this brash but lovable stalwart general who raises her from a kid. And we see in a flashback, he's just saved her from a monster attack. And there's this motif in this movie about people losing shoes. But he's just rescued her from the monsters, and he comes out of his Jaeger, and the sun's setting behind him, and he's her savior, and she looks at this little kid is looking up at her, and she must have fantastic eyesight, because he's got to be 100 feet away. But it's a flashback, so we can forgive her for being dramatic. It's probably just her perceptions of things. I wish they'd done more with that. Digging through people's memories of the monsters attacking. That could have been a great world-building technique. These psychic interfaces, going into people's heads and witnessing their worlds changing based on these monsters. I think they could have done more if they just had less of the stuff that they didn't need. Anyway, it could have been worse. Best thing I can say about this movie. Well, best thing I can say is that it was really fun watching the